Hi there, and welcome to Side Quest. Our regular adventures are just too much adventure to handle, so we like to take a break in between to maybe play a game, maybe have an interesting guest, or maybe just talk some shit. Going to be talking some shit today. And who's going to be talking some shit? It's me, Steve Weverill, John Hartness, Drew Hayes, Robert Bevan, and Rick Waltieri. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Salutations!
Oh, fuck you and your Mr. Fister. Jesus.
I mean, you're doing it as a joke now, but then you'll just start doing it more and more, and then soon there will be no Drew. There will only be Mr. Hister. And then, I don't know what
And for some reason, our listenership will triple.
The Mr. Hister Show with some other guys.
Yeah, that's the only thing separating us from Critical Role: video, production values, and voice acting.
Yes, or specifically that one piece of voice acting.
Yeah. And, a couple million listeners.
They'll figure it out eventually. Just got to give them time. Just got to be patient with them. Okay, the subject today, I'm trying to think of a segue into the subject that doesn't make me sound like a mercenary bastard, but I can't think of one.
I mean, I'm in publishing. I'll sound like a mercenary bastard. Hey, motherfuckers, we're making a comic book. You should give us money for it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You cut right to the quick there.
We have a limited time on the podcast, and we need to get the plugs in early and often.
Well, yeah, let's get the bonus action out of the way. And the bonus action in this case is a hardcore shilling.
You're not wrong.
We're going to talk about comic books today because we've been thinking a lot about comic books recently, because we've been talking about a lot, because we have finally, after a couple of years of our Patreon subscribers getting a free couple of comic book pages a month, for it's time to put that shit into the world. And issue 1 of Chronicles of Calamity, the Authors and Dragons comic book adventure, is now up on Indiegogo. It's already had its minimum requirement funded, so it's going to get published. It's going to get put out into the world. But, we want to make as big a bang as possible on this because we've got other issues and other projects we want to do.
Yeah, we got other issues, all right.
God knows, so many issues.
I mean, comic book issues. We'll save that other stuff for our YouTube channel. I guess I'll just kick this off by saying go check it out. Go to Indiegogo, type in Chronicles of Calamity, have a look. There's still some cool tiers left, although a lot of the cooler perks have already sold out. Sorry. And yeah, if you want to get a physical copy of the issue, or you just want to give a couple of bucks for a digital copy, or if you just want to look at it and say nah because it gives you a feeling of power, then go do that.
Steve, when you said it's fully funded and it's getting made no matter what, that almost sounded like a threat.
Yeah, you can't stop it.
Fuck you, God.
I can't wait. I'm genuinely excited about it. Doing the crowdfunder has been cool. We've been teaming up with John Luther Davis, the artist, and Johnny Segura III, the colorist, and they've been coming up with all these cool perk ideas, and we've probably got some stretch goals in the works. But it's just been a pretty cool experience just to see how the artists have brought our inane bullshit to life.
Well, what's even cooler is the fact that, what was it up there for 2 days, 3 days before our awesome listeners pushed us over that first goal line that basically said, yes, this will happen, no matter what.
Oh, the response was incredible. Yeah. I mean, we had some really cool tiers. We had some tiers to get original artwork from John Luther Davis, and there was some original sketches tiers, and there was also NPC tiers, which was the art team's idea, where we can draw people into the comic book as NPCs. These are all fucking great.
And now
perks.
you have tears because you didn't get there in time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, here I am bigging up these perks which are no longer there. Be quicker on the draw next time, listener, you fool.
And the way that you can be sure you don't miss those tiers next time is you pledge this time, and then when we start the campaign for issue 2, you'll get a heads up early.
Yeah, or join the Patreon. They always hear about things first, generally. Or just, pay more attention.
or just like send me money in particular, and I'll give you a heads up.
You send him enough, he'll just straight up hold a spot for you.
Let me enough money. I'll just give you. I'll just check in with you every week, phone you up.
That is the best scam of all, because you pay Bob money to hear first, and you still hear a week later than everybody else.
Just phone you up on a Sunday. No, nothing's happening. I'm just checking in on you. Keep giving me money. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just remember, watch Steve's Facebook for news on the comic and cat rescues.
Oh, yeah, that was yeah, do check out my Facebook for the cat rescue. There's no money involved in this for me. I just, something exciting happened to me today, and it probably never will again. So there's just like one reason to check out my Facebook now, because a cat was in danger across the street.
And no cats were harmed in the making of this, of Steve's excitement.
We need a new Patreon tier. Steve's window cam, just in case something happens. Eventually.
I mean, nothing ever has happened worth filming outside my window until today, and probably nothing ever will. But you should probably check my Facebook regularly, just in case.
All right, I got an idea. New tier, $200, or we're gonna kill this kitten.
I got a BB gun. I got a sniper scope.
Since Joe's not here, God damn it!
Well, we haven't done it. I mean, we haven't even set up the perk yet. No one's in danger until it becomes, financially attractive for someone to be in danger. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. Well, we're kind of not, I guess. Yeah, I mean, go check out Chronicles of Calamity, because I think it's safe to say, I know I like comics, so this is like a cool project for me from my point of view, because I never kind of got to work with an artist before. But slipping into the main topic, how do you all feel about comics?
Mostly indifferent.
I suspected as much. I think I had that written down.
There is an exception. I'll get to it later.
I mean, I think I can actually talk about comics longer than I can talk about pro wrestling.
Wow.
God damn.
Yeah, I don't have any pro wrestling quotes tattooed on my body. I do have a line from a comic book tattooed on my arm.
I find it more surprising that you don't have any wrestling quotes tattooed on your body.
Well, I can't find anybody yet who will tattoo woo across the entirety of my ass. John Luther Davis, do not respond to that.
Oh, come on. Bullshit. I am calling absolute bullshit on that.
I also have never asked anyone to tattoo woo across my ass. That's a much higher Patreon tier, motherfuckers.
Well, again, it's all going in the idea bucket.
Blue Sky session, no bad ideas here.
No, this is a panel for A&D Con 2021. Live tattoo of John's ass.
Just a 3-hour fucking slot.
I know surprisingly little about classic comic books for a dude who writes superheroes, but I have read a shitload of webcomics, especially when I was in college.
And I'm the opposite. I know a lot more about comics prior to 2000 than I do webcomics or current comics.
I got buckets upon buckets of old comics down in my basement that I'm not allowed to bring upstairs, because I only pay for this house.
Hasn't your basement flooded like multiple times?
Which is why I have heavy duty plastic bins and multiple layers.
So you just have these huge blocks of mold, is what you're telling me.
I don't know. They get cleaned off.
He takes care of his basement comics, John. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really criticize that. I too have, I don't know, it must be a good 60 odd those file boxes filled with various comics. And not even because they're collectible either, because we don't really get the original kind of Marvel and DC stuff over here. We get kind of collections. But so I've just got like a huge fucking wall of comics that are completely worthless. but just make me feel good to look at.
Yeah, I stopped buying single issues a while back, and now I've read some online. I've done some Comixology and stuff, but that interface sucks, so I don't read stuff that way very much.
Have you tried Marvel Unlimited? It's not terrible.
Have they changed it? Because it wasn't good a few years ago, but this has been a while.
I would stick by my initial description a few moments ago of not terrible.
Okay.
It's not the Hulu of comic readers. It's, I don't know, the Prime. It ain't Netflix for damn sure.
Yeah. I've definitely moved online for my comics because you know what I find helps having a comic shop you like, and I'm like growing up and also like in college, there were comic shops that like I liked because I mean one of them was kind of run by a sketchy guy who kept trying to be like, hey, want to come see my collection in the basement? And it was like no. But at least at least he was enthusiastic about it. The comic shop in my town right now, you walk in and they just like look like if you just died right there and in the doorway, they just sprinkle sawdust in you and keep going on with their day.
I can't believe Steve didn't have a pedophile joke locked and loaded for that.
Oh, no,
you are usually the first one to throw that flag on the play.
No, I just assumed. I thought the flag there was so obvious. It was like there was nothing around the flag. That statement was all flag.
That's basically a Webster episode. Like substitute comics for bikes, and I think that is straight up an episode.
Yeah, that's 100% a very special episode of Different Strokes.
That's it.
Hey kid, want to come see my secret comic book collection in the basement? I don't know. It would sound like somebody'd say in a PSA of how not to go into a pedophile dungeon, I think.
You expect that person to have a giant dark top hat, a cowl, and a mustache that they twirl constantly.
No, that's not what I'm picturing. I was thinking of like a big fat guy with a lot of stubble and a wife beater.
Did he have clown makeup, Bob? Because I was with you until you got to the tank top, and then I was like, oh no, mine was a trench coat and clown makeup.
I have to warn you, the stacks of comics are very close to each other. It's a narrow fit, so I'm gonna need you to baby oil yourself up first.
It's kind of hot down there, so you might want to take off all your clothes.
You're going to have to follow my guiding rod. Don't look at it. Don't look at it.
Yeah. Smart move, Rick. I'm glad he was like genuinely enthusiastic about other aspects of his business. But
fortunately, I was smart enough to be like, I like comic books. I don't like them that much.
Yeah. Solid call.
We have two great comic shops in Charlotte, but one, I don't leave the house very much anymore, and two, it's expensive. I mean, goddamn. The number of comic books I would want to read if I tried to keep up with shit, I'd be spending a couple $100 a week on comics, and that's alcohol money.
Can you even get comic books right now, John? Because we're recording this during
Yes.
quarantine, if you're listening to this post crazy times.
Yes, you can. There was a period of time when you couldn't, but they restarted all distribution. So, yeah, you can. At least here in town, the two stores have really strict limits on how many people they're allowing in the store, but they also are doing curbside service if you have a subscription box.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've been doing curbside since the quarantine started. Basically, they were completely shut down for 2 weeks, but then as soon as any businesses could reopen, they were reopened and they just said, pull up, call us, we'll bring your comics out, we'll run your credit card right there at your car.
Click and collect comics. Nice.
I mean, it helps that the guy who owns one of the shops in town is the guy that created Heroes Con, which is a massive comic book con. So the guy's been in business for 35 years. He knows what's up by now.
Cool. I'd say myself growing up, comic book shops weren't that common. Not in the small town I had. We'd mostly get stuff out of newsagents, which again would be kind of collected comic book episodes, which had the advantage of you'd get a current storyline, or maybe like a month or so behind America's current storylines. But you'd also get like classic stuff, so that was kind of good from an educational perspective. And you'd get kind of 2000 AD in the newsagents, which is generally cool as fuck. I'll probably end up talking about that a lot. But it wasn't until I was, I guess, just out of university, trying to get a job and failing miserably and staying at a friend's house. And he just had an entire room of his house just filled with comics he'd been collecting. Just loads of 80s Avengers stuff. Just Avengers right from the 80s up to present day. And I basically, instead of getting a job, just kind of had like a fast track comic book education, which was much better than getting a job.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned UK, like, you know, kind of like almost being behind, because back in like, I guess like the 90s or so, this should come as no surprise to anybody. Obviously, I was collecting the Marvel Transformers comics, and
What?
the UK, yeah, I know, mind blower. But the UK comics were the ones to get because they were far ahead. Because apparently in the UK they published it bi-weekly. So they just went off on their own tangents with stories, and a lot of those stories were a lot better than the ones we were getting in the US.
That's one. It would have been one time we were ahead of the game when it came to like the mainstream stuff, DC and Marvel. We were always like pretty far behind, but I guess like there's been kind of a lot of, I guess not influence, but British infiltration, shall we say, of the American comic book market on a kind of an artist and writer scale. So
It was a Brit who reinvented superheroes.
and that Brit's name was
Alan
Steve Weverill. Oh right, okay.
Someone even fucking freakier than Steve Weverill.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I guess he did kind of not the first, but maybe the most definitive kind of deconstruction of the superhero genre. I'd say
Yeah. It
Garth
was
Ennis was either slightly before him, but he was British as well.
after.
So. Was he after?
After. Because Ennis, Alan Moore, it was one of the first times that superheroes were written for adult readers. And then Garth Ennis was one of the first times everyone said fuck a lot. Garth Ennis is a huge influence on my writing, actually. His run on Hellblazer with Steve Dillon art and Glenn Fabry covers are some of my favorite comics ever.
There's a lot of people kind of get to the stage of Alan Moore and Garth Ennis and they think, oh, right, that's the superhero genre deconstructed. Now we can never go back. But not even, I mean, Watchmen is like an excellent deconstruction of the superhero like mythos, but it's also very fun and there's punching and there's sci-fi plot and it's wacky and it's, you know, funny. It's not like utter misery.
No, it's not.
It's not everybody now thinks they're like, yeah, I'll do a Superman story, but Superman just fucking hate himself because superheroes are shit. It's like Alan Moore and Garth Ennis, maybe they changed their mind now. They didn't hate superheroes.
It's also worth noting, if you're doing a deconstruction, you have to also be building something. Taking apart an old story isn't enough. There also still has to be a real story within that, which, you know.
Watchmen certainly had that.
Yeah, 100%.
Still a stupid ending. It's a Stephen King level of can't stick the landing.
Yeah, I'll
You can't argue that one.
Are we talking about the aliens ending?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, I know we like to give a lot of rightly deserved shit to the movie version, but that was a smarter ending.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, the movie version. All I remember seeing it, I went to go see it in the theater, and I let this friend of mine, and he normally came to my theater, and like I should have like known that because not the most prompt person in the world. No, we decided to go and see it at his theater. He showed up late. We got seats. The only seats were left were in the front row. So all I remember with that theater was like sitting in the front row, looking up and seeing just 10 feet of blue dick just swinging in my face for 2 hours.
And it was the best movie you ever saw.
And they made me sit there through 5 more showings. They made me.
That's
They
a
made
lot
me.
of Billy Crudup cock.
I'm about to destroy any kind of a comic book cred I built up there by just admitting that I got Garth Ennis and Grant Morrison's name mixed up there. I meant Grant
I was
Morrison.
really trying to figure out when you had Garth Ennis writing superheroes.
Yeah, Garth Ennis genuinely does hate superheroes. Grant Morrison wrote the excellent deconstruction on it was Flex Mentalo, was it?
Yes, Flex. He also wrote a really good X-Men run.
I'm trying to think. Was he the guy who also wrote Mr. Miracle or Miracle Man?
I think that was
them
Gaiman.
confused either. Yeah. I think I've mentioned all the British influence on American comics now. I've done my patriotic duty.
Yeah,
I can sit down now.
Before we step away from Watchmen, I've neither seen it nor read it, but I'm aware of it, and I've done a little bit of research on it, and I was just wondering, I think the big brouhaha was Alan Moore said it was unfilmable. Aside from Rick's experience with 10-foot blue dicks, did you find that to be the case, or?
No.
Actually, Alan Moore he was a real strong component and always has been of comics doing what comics can do best. And in many ways, it wasn't unfilmable, but there were things in the comic which I guess did kind of stretch the medium to its fullest. It was, a real sitting down with the Watchmen comic book is a very different experience than sitting down and watching the movie.
Now, having seen some really, really shit adaptations of Alan Moore comic books, I get where he was coming from.
It's true.
Yeah, but at the same time, every time he says my stuff is unfilmable, a part of me is just like, fuck you. Now I want to see another bad adaptation just because I know it will piss you off.
I mean, it was a
Extraordinary
lot
Gentleman
of
still
story.
exists.
Like,
That's kind of where I'm coming from when I read about this, but
it was a super dense, a lot of story. I get why he thought that, and it was filmed. And some people have a lot of hatred in their heart for it. I don't think it was that terrible of a movie, but I would be hard pressed to defend it as a fair representation of the quality of the comic.
No.
Yeah, I think maybe this might be a rumor I'm pulling out my ass or a dream I had, but somebody wanted to do it as a TV series at one point, which would have made a lot more sense. Mind you, they wanted to do it at a time where TV miniseries weren't that good. If somebody kind of in the golden age of streaming, back in the Breaking Bad days, or the post-Breaking Bad days, I should say, said, we want to do a 12-part Watchmen series, that would have made more sense in a movie, because it is pretty dense.
Well, HBO just did their sequel.
all right. Well, was the density the problem? I'm just wondering if there was some other element of storytelling that wouldn't translate to film.
At the time he wrote that, Bob, I think he was talking specifically about the Dr. Manhattan character, because you weren't seeing any 10-foot Billy Crudup dick on the screen.
It was all about the dick,
then.
basically. So there's no way anyone can fit that much dick onto a screen. Screens aren't big enough. It's
Projectors
impossible.
weren't powerful enough to render that much huge blue dong.
Yeah. But technology moves, we can computerize in,
And so did the dick.
creatures onto Tatooine, and we can
Yeah.
now
You're not selling me
When
here, John.
everybody else was watching Jurassic Park and wowing at the dinosaurs for the first time, there was one VFX guy crying in his chair because he realized that blue dick was possible at long last.
Some guy just kicked down Steven Spielberg's door. It's like, okay, so here's how we're going to do the dinosaur dick. Steven Spielberg was like, the dinosaur doesn't have a dick. And then that guy just didn't work again. The rest of his life.
No, that guy then went and did Watchmen.
He didn't come out of retirement until like, it's like, we're going to do a Watchmen movie. Get me that dinosaur dick guy. He's the only one. He's the only guy with a passion to make this work. The technology has aligned.
Somebody there and like at Skywalker Ranch, at Lucasfilm, just like, okay, I finally figured out the holy grail of special effects: naturally swinging dong.
Just walking out onto the deserts of Skywalker Ranch. I'm looking for the guy who understands the perfect jiggle physics of animated penises. Do you know him? Of course I know him. He is me.
Sir, I've seen your footage of Brontosaurus dick. Can we do that in blue?
Also, Alan Moore's a pretentious cock. So.
Yeah, he's a bit pretentious. But, there were little things like neat little bits like the kind of excerpts from biographies and magazine articles. And it was, I think they did a fair adaptation of something that was pretty hard to adapt into.
I'd give it a B minus.
I mean, like I said, I've never read it nor seen it, but as far as adaptations go, I think, perhaps he was just underestimating the creativity that some directors can bring to the screen. Like I've never read this, but I've seen it several times. One of my favorite adaptations was Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
I agree. I a lot of people hate that movie, and I'm like, this is just a fun movie to watch.
People hate that movie.
I've never read it, but I really liked that movie.
It's incredibly well done.
Yeah, same. Never read it, but liked the movie. I think that might be the key to a lot of these. Is if you haven't read it, you don't have the knowledge of what the probably better version is.
Yeah,
it's the kind of movie where, if you don't get the movie, it's probably a much narrower "is this your thing" than most movies. But if you appreciate kind of just pure Edgar Wright in kind of the Joss Whedon era of dialogue writing, that movie is pretty much as perfect as it can be.
Yeah, exactly what Drew was saying was the problem I had with Keanu Reeves in Constantine, because I was such a fan of Hellblazer, and especially that 90s, that Garth Ennis era Hellblazer, that when I watched Constantine, I was like, this is bullshit.
See, I watched Constantine and thought, there's something I'm not getting here. So I can always tell when something's been adapted, because I didn't find out it was based on something till after I watched it. I thought, that's why it's slightly off. Because when you watch something that's been badly adapted, it always feels slightly off.
See, I saw it with, like, knowing it was a comic book, but I'd never read the comic book, and honestly, I kind of like Constantine. It, like, if now knowing more about the character, is it even remotely? It's probably about as faithful as, like, as the Incredible Hulk TV show was, into the whole comic. But it stands on its own. It's actually not a bad movie, I thought.
I went back last year and rewatched it, and I was like, okay, with distance from the source material, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Tilda Swinton is good in it. The guy who plays, I love whoever they got to play Satan. I forgot what that guy's name was, but that's just awesome to watch.
I remember how creepy Tilda Swinton was. She was the thing that stands out to me from that movie.
Oh, yeah.
She's always a bit creepy, in a good way.
Yeah, they used her very, very well. Like, she seemed human-like, but not quite, and that's a pretty good use of Tilda Swinton.
Yeah. I'd also say, and again, this goes back to kind of defending Alan Moore's. I don't think he is pretentious, but maybe necessarily so to his character. But the language of filmmaking has only very recently kind of been adapted, so we have a comic book movie. We just used to have action movies about comic book concepts. And it's like trying to fit what is a mainstream concept into the necessary budget to make it work would have required it making it have the beats of an accessible movie. And it wasn't really till we got to kind of there were a few winners from that formula, but not. There were also quite a few losers. It wasn't until quite recently in cinematic history that you could say, yes, this is a comic book movie. So maybe at the time, him saying there are certain things that comic books can do that other mediums can't, and we should respect that and just, stick within the medium. It's a bit pretentious, but I can dig it.
And also, we've seen the mediums blur together. Comics have moved more towards storytelling like TV and movies, and TV and movies have moved more towards being told like comic books. I mean, it's why everything Robert Kirkman creates gets turned into a TV show.
That's true.
He's the guy that created Walking Dead, in case I'm too nerdy for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, with the kind of evolution in filmmaking, films have become a lot more, TV's become a lot more like film, and there is kind of the sheer amount of content getting put out there means that these kind of adaptations are coming thicker and faster and can take a few more risks, and things aren't as generic as they used to be. And there's the freedom to sort of tell these more out there comic book tales. But at the same time, I think there's definitely a more cynical kind of evolution of comics to try and appeal to that content mill market by making them a little bit more, hey, this would make a great movie. Hey, this would make a great 12-part TV series. To the point where certain comic book artists are starting to kind of make their heroes look a little bit like movie stars.
You mean like maybe make one of the characters in The Boys look like the lead guy from Shaun of the Dead?
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that going on.
Or wasn't Marvel using basically Samuel Jackson's likeness for Nick Fury for a while, and Samuel Jackson called up his manager like, "What the fuck is this?"
It's a solid move.
Yeah, I heard that. I don't know how true that is, but very believable, and would definitely explain why he slipped in so naturally to the part.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember the Shaun of the Dead guy's name. Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg.
Well, yeah, I mean, Garth Ennis even had him write the foreword to the first graph collection of The Boys. Because he was like, we wrote and drew this guy to be Simon Pegg.
Yeah, and pretty sure, Drew, what you just said about that, I'm pretty sure that's true. That's true. There, from the very beginning, the ultimate comics version of Nick Fury, dead ringer for Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
I think they even had it in a comic book. I remember reading the Ultimate stuff, which was the Ultimate stuff was a bold start that quickly turned into bitchy nonsense. But yeah, they had this scene where the Avengers were all talking to each other and say, "Hey, they made a movie about us. Who'd play you?" And the Samuel L. Jackson look at Nick Fury said, "Why, it's Samuel L. Jackson, of course." I thought, God, you're really reaching out there, guys.
Just throwing it out on the table, fuckers.
But it worked out. It worked out in the end.
It worked
No
out
one
fine.
said Robert Downey Jr.
That's a good point.
Should have. He is Tony Stark.
Yeah, that was a weird time. Everyone's like, they're getting Robert Downey Jr. to play Iron Man. Remember that washed-up guy that no one cares about?
What a swing for the fences these people are taking.
And
Drag him up.
what kind of idiot tries to launch a big cinematic universe with Iron Man, for fuck's sake?
It is interesting. Like, we give a lot of shade to DC for all their fuck-uppery with the DCEU, but when the Marvel universe started out, remember, historically, superhero movies, very hit and miss. Not at all a guaranteed moneymaker. So the idea of a sustainable, long-term series of them was fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I might even argue that they weren't very hit and miss. They were just very miss and miss most of the time.
Well, I mean, box office-wise, the part that they cared about.
Yeah. The money. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, even, again, going back to Alan Moore saying The Watchmen is unfilmable, I think it was Avengers 2, which is probably one of the, maybe bottom 5 Marvel movies.
Yeah, I hated that one.
But there was a point at the beginning which just had all the Avengers on the screen at the same time, and kind of flying through the air in this fantastic battle sequence that would have just been unthinkable in the 90s, even in the early 2000s, would have seemed like a ridiculous nerd boy fantasy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I mentioned the Incredible Hulk TV show, and after that went off the air, they did a couple of spin-off movies. And the spin-off movies, the first one had Thor, and the second one had like Daredevil, and they were horrible versions of Thor and Daredevil. But even so, it was like, holy shit, we're actually getting a team up here, you know?
Yeah, I remember that one. It's like he didn't even have a costume. He was just kind of in some black pajamas and a balaclava. Yeah, it's Daredevil. It'll do. I was like, yes, it will.
And then there's Captain America with his motorcycle and his plexiglass shield on the front of his motorcycle.
Shield's supposed to be vibranium. Yeah, but we've got all we've got is plexiglass. Then plexiglass it shall be.
It's Plexibranium.
Well, apparently it was well known at the time, and I think this is why like Marvel's still trying to collect all their whatchamacallit, like, you know, movie rights, is that apparently like Stan Lee was like, you know, he was like he would basically just sell these movie rights to like anybody who had an idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen clips of the Roger Corman Fantastic Four. It's right down there with any of the other Fantastic Four movies.
What a surprise.
How dare he sully such a noble legacy?
I'm going to jump in. I've
Yeah.
seen several Fantastic Four movies against my will, and I hate it at its very core and concept.
You know what those movies are good for, Bob? They're good for getting guys in spandex to play the Human Torch that then go on to be really good as other Marvel superheroes.
Superhero proving ground.
Yeah.
Because both Human Torches, one went on to be Captain America and the other went on to be Killmonger in Black Panther.
I wonder if whoever
So-
gets the next Human Torch role is like going to call their agent, I got the Human Torch role, so this movie's going to be dog shit, but afterwards, you know, we're going to do some good shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marvel has the license back, you know, and they've proven that they can, like, unless something happens where there's a big shuffle and, like, you know, and quality starts going way down, they seem to have the winning formula right now.
That's true.
I'm not gonna say they can do no wrong.
Thor
But,
2, yeah.
yeah.
We
Oh. That's like the Fight Club of superhero movies. We just don't talk about it.
Oh, all right. I thought you were going to talk shit about Fight Club. That was
No.
like that was one of those another one of those Alan Moore things where like, well, I mean, I don't think anybody ever said it. Yeah, Fight Club the novel can't be adapted, but I thought the movie. I actually did read the book and see the movie, and I thought, wow, I liked the movie
Yeah.
a shit ton more. I think it's one of those exceptions to the rule where you throw in some creativity from a director and
And some
you can
killer
have an
acting.
even better product.
I mean, those guys were great.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now,
Yeah, I mean, that was another kind of, I don't know, it's not a comic book. We probably shouldn't get distracted.
we can shift over to a different kind of comic book. We haven't really talked much about web comics, which are a genre that came on the scene, I guess, along with the internet. I know them mostly from
funny
the
how that works.
early 2000s is when they were, I guess, picking up steam in the genres that I was aware of. So anybody read web comics?
Webcomics now is just such a broad fucking field. And a lot of them are just kind of like, this is something random to share on Facebook. But I remember kind of the first thing I read, the really kind of, because obviously I'd read normal comics, and then there was somebody who just said, well, I'm on the internet. I'm not beholden to any publisher. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I think that was Dr. McNinja, which was still enough like a comic book to to have the art and feel and structure and quality of something you'd pick up in a comic book store. But it was just absolutely fucking nuts. It was just ridiculous. I think the first episode was Dr. McNinja using frozen shamrock shurikens to cure somebody of Paul Bunyan's disease. It was, it was delightfully surreal, but not kind of in the, haha, I'm so random, I don't have to make sense kind of way. The universe had its own logic, but it was just a ridiculous kind of logic. I think my favorite scene from that was the first prototype Dr. McNinja was about him, McDonald's suing him for having a muck in his name, which actually happened in real life later on. So that was weirdly prescient. And he ends up fighting Ronald.
Did?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
McDonald's lost a lawsuit to I think a pub called McDonald's in Ireland.
Probably because the owner's actual name was fucking McDonald.
Yeah, but they tried to sue him. I think he can just make Big Macs now if he likes. I don't know how it worked out. But
Can you imagine being like your last name being Disney and just going through your entire life, just knowing that one day you're going to open up the mailbox and there's going to be a summons there for you?
You're going to get a cease and desist letter, but it's going to be cease and desist living.
send a clown round to beat the shit out of you. But yeah, speaking of beating the shit out of clowns, in the Dr. McNinja comic book, the first part where I realized that kind of all of the pop culture that I'd been subjected to had come to a head in this comic, and I realized this was kind of a very much a my generation thing. I think he beats the crap out of a load of McDonald's employees and goes into this dark room, and Ronald McDonald's is just sitting in this completely pitch black room under a spotlight smoking a cigarette. And he says, do you like it? It's my final boss room. And I just thought, that is wonderfully silly. And also a ninja is about to beat up a clown. And, I just thought, this is, the comic for my time. And that was that's when I realized that webcomics were pretty cool.
Yeah, Dr. McNinja was really solid. It ran for a while, finished out, and I believe the artist went on to do some work with actual comic companies. If I'm not mistaken, I think he wrote Gwenpool for a while.
He definitely wrote a Deadpool for a while. I don't know if he might have wrote Gwenpool.
I'm pretty sure he did Gwenpool. I think he launched Gwenpool.
From humble beginnings of beating the shit out of clowns on the internet.
Oh man, I read a ton. I was browsing through some of my old web links to see which of these were even still running, but a lot of the big names, Sluggy Freelance, XKCD, Something Positive, Questionable Content, a lot of these still going, amazingly. Not Adventures of Wonderella is, I don't think, one people knew about a lot, but it was about a very neutral, bored superhero who is a lot of fun. It's another one who I think went on to do some bigger writing jobs, but that I don't know his career as well.
I only got into reading webcomics after I got into publishing books, and I would do comic cons and meet webcomic creators. So that's the stuff I was reading was all people that I had met, but I kind of fell off. When I stopped having a day job and stopped having time to waste while I was stuck at a desk and kind of forced to fuck off, I stopped reading webcomics because now I just get up and go play video games.
Yeah, there's been a couple over the years that I've checked out, and when I've read them I've enjoyed them, but I can't say I've actually followed any. There's
one I'd love to recommend right now, just for the sake of recommending it. And it's not like traditional comics at all. It's very much like, I don't know if you have an equivalent in America, but in England we've got something called the Beano, which is just stories about kids getting into trouble. Just like ridiculous kids that can run really fast and, tough kids, and they're just stupid and it's fun. But somebody called John Allison wrote something called Bad Machinery, which was like the Beano if it met Twin Peaks. It's adult in the case of the humor will appeal to adults, but it doesn't swear or anything, or have any kind of gratuitous violence or anything. It's just a really nice, verging on wholesome comic about some kids that solve mysteries, but in what it looks like a small town, northern English town, but is also just extremely weird, and will just have aliens and beast men roaming the woods, and sentient dog creatures, seemingly kind of like just unremarked on.
So shingles.
No, well, no, because nothing awful happens.
Except no swearing.
Nothing happens that kills your soul. It's quite wholesome.
Well, it's funny that you mention, shingles as a potential comic book idea. I mean, we already know where like our game translates well to comics when we have the right people translating it. But I mean, we have this 30+ book series, out there, all of which are relatively short, kind of standalone stuff. I guess, I mean, and that used to be kind of like, kind of a big thing in comics, kind of like the whole concept of like, anthologies, like, like Creep Show or so.
I think that would be that'd be an interesting experiment, because you say that somebody translated our podcast into a comic book. Some very competent artists did that, who just happened to love the show. And I'm quite amazed that it actually turned into something coherent and, not just 50 pages of Robert Bevan drowning in a well or whatever. But,
that would be brilliant.
I'm not saying that wouldn't be brilliant, but I'm just saying it's a very niche audience.
Release the Bevan well cut.
Yeah. Or issue 32. He's still alive, folks.
Still swimming.
I mean, it'd be hilarious if we did that, but it'd also be like a massive waste of ink and paper, and maybe only I'd get it. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, translating shingles, I mean, would a just God even allow that?
I mean, I'm a giant horse, so if somebody will pay for it, I'm in.
All right, so if we did, that sort of thing, what one, this is going to be the hardest for Bob by a country mile, but what one of your shingle stories would you want to see adapted into comic book form?
It's got to be, for me, no question, Put Your Hand Up My Ass. And also I'd like to see that adapted into a comic book. But yeah, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, could you even draw half of the shit that goes on in shingles without someone getting arrested? And I think
you certainly couldn't carry it across state lines.
Yeah, but I think an underage boy fisting a puppet, and the puppet, I think, telling him to spit in his hair or whatever, is that's the litmus test for me. I mean, it's not quite full on Robert Bevan, but it's getting there. It's getting you kind of. It's a gateway horror. It's a gateway travesty.
Certainly, of Steve's shingles, yeah, Put Your Hand on My Ass is the one I want to see adapted, and I'm looking forward to the sequel, Sloppy Seconds. I'm sorry, Steve. I don't want to take this from you, but that just has to be what it's named.
Yeah, I can't really imagine it would be called anything else.
Yeah, all right.
It's perfect. So yeah, I'd definitely go for Put Your Hand in My Ass.
Solid pick. Pick.
For me, it would be Zombies Ate My Homework. I just preteens running through a porno store and killing zombies with butt plugs.
I mean, it's visually interesting.
Yeah, I have no better comedy than that.
That was fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of action going on there, and all that action is both gory and hilarious at the same time. It's just one of those shingles experience where you're sort of laughing, but you feel a bit sick.
Yeah, I was like, normally I would pick Gary's Children from mine, but since I don't want to spend the rest of my life on the run, living in Ukraine crack houses, I'm gonna go with Demon Load.
How much worse are Ukraine crack houses than Jersey?
I don't really want to find out.
Well, you can't get a good sausage roll to save your fucking life.
In either one.
Yeah. There you go. I think for me it would have to be Slaughter on Giggle Time Mountain. Because visually there's so much fun stuff in there. There's the big bunny head. There's the various
That's
costumes.
what I was thinking. That fucking bunny head, man. That's a movie. I know people who make low budget horror flicks, dude.
I wrote it as a movie. I mean, that's basically what it was meant to be.
We can come up with 10 grand. We can probably get that done.
All right, if you're listening to this and you also make movies, Slaughter on Giggle Time Mountain is up for grabs. So reach out.
Also, if you just want to give me 10 grand, do that as well.
Yeah.
Not for any particular reason. I just, if you got a line around, it's fine.
I could use that too.
All right, Bob, we left you for last.
Yeah, we left you for last deliberately, man.
Well, I mean, I'd probably go with The Ghost of Hooker Alley. That was just a lot of fun to write. If not that, that time of the month. It didn't do as well, but I don't know. That was one of my favorite concepts. A young girl turning into a werewolf, but thinking that she was going through puberty. And I don't know, and people were exploding instead of that she was tearing them apart.
I always like the naivety of the main characters in Robert Bevan Shingles, because it makes all the really awful shit that happens around them that much more terrible.
See, I would probably want to see, It Came From My Butthole.
That's exactly what I was going to pick.
Because there's just so much visually awful shit in that book that would translate so disturbingly well to comics.
That was maybe the one I was most nervous about releasing.
Can't imagine why.
There's a pun there. Definitely, that would be my strategy. If I was like a comic book publisher saying, I'm going to take on the Shingles, I'm probably going to do the most horribly offensive one first, because then if people aren't on board, they know it. So, yeah, I'd probably pick It Came From My Butthole as well, just as a litmus test.
I kind of want to see Rick's Legend of Jimmy Headshot, just because foul-mouthed children amuse the fuck out of me.
Yeah. I mean, what are the odds that we'd get lucky with with Shingles as a comic, as we did with a comic producer, as we did with with audio production? We're just like, yeah, we'll take it. We'll go with this. Are you sure?
Hey, IDW, Boom, you fuckers do some weird shit. Call a brother up.
I mean, to be fair, we were very upfront with the audio guys. I believe we did put the most offensive Robert Bevan story up first, and then they still bought it. So
yeah, if anybody's cool with The Ghost of Hooker Alley, they're cool with pretty much anything.
Yeah, if you get it, if you're into that, then just relax and enjoy the ride. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, it's not like they're gonna read that and then get to say Aliens Wreck Dark Kager and be like, man, I got friends named Tony.
Drew doesn't anymore. But
it's kind of like you must be this tall to ride, but this you must be this depraved to enjoy the Shingles series.
It's funny because that's what I did with my Quincy Harker book series. The first sentence is, I fucking hate demons. I'm like, hey, let's just lay it all out there right at the beginning. If you don't like foul language and you don't like stories about demons, you should buy something else. I have a whole fucking table.
Oh, I put, Critical Failures 1, I put it right on the cover. Shit is about to get real. And still, I get complaints.
What? That's the thing. I think
this is not wholesome. I bought this for
God,
my
I want to see I want to see that that comic review of I bought The Ghost of Hooker Alley, thinking that I could share this with my family.
Well, they're good. That's why I want to see this in a comic book form. I want the Ghost of Hooker Alley to be the very first comic book they pick up. I want it to have a picture on the cover of a dead hooker with a child looking at it, and some ridiculous mother to pick up for their 4-year-old and then complain about it, so we can just say, "Good, you're an idiot. You deserve this. Your child deserves this trauma, and it's your fault."
You know what we need? We need that woman who complained that Deadpool was not PG-13. We need her on our side to drum up some publicity.
If anybody's got her address,
That kid whose mother buys the Ghost of Hooker Alley, he's gonna grow up cool.
He's going to be the coolest kid on the playground.
he's going to be in rehab by 10th grade.
Nah.
Yeah, cool kid rehab.
What are you? I'm reading Superman. I'm reading Spider-Man. I'm reading about a dead hooker.
Where's your god now?
Yeah. Nobody's gonna fuck with that kid on the playground.
Yeah.
I think if I was doing a shingles conversion, I would probably do it because I used to love those goofy horror movie anthologies. Shit, I forget what it's called, like the Crypt Keeper ones.
Oh man, I love a horror anthology.
Creepshow,
A good one,
yeah.
a bad one. Fuck, I love those.
I mean, the Creepshow ones, even like the mainstream ones that were written by competent people and directed by competent people and had good makeup effects, they were kind of like deliberately bad, but good bad.
Mhm.
But there were so many cheap spin-offs, and they were just bad, and I loved them growing up. I got a special place in my heart for those bad horror anthologies. I think I'd probably want to do shingles like that, like a bunch of kids around a campfire telling horrific shingle stories to each other. Yeah.
I certainly like that idea.
Yeah, it's a fun framing device.
Just these awful little bastards, each trying to out-awful the other.
Well, that is sort of central to the shingles ethos, I guess. Just children being witness to unreasonable horror.
Or maybe like, oh no, here you go. The camp counselor is telling the stories.
Oh, God.
Gather around, children. Now I gotta tell you the tale of the ghost of my butthole. Oh, shit. It came from my butthole. Yeah, I should know my own story's title.
I thought you were just doing a bit.
It's like, yeah, you little bastards have heard about the monkey's paw, but have you heard about his penis?
I mean, that would be... I don't know. Maybe we should be knocking on the door of Marvel Comics or whoever. Fuck it, go big. Hasbro. Let's just...
I mean, like, yeah, Drew gave Steve the title of King of Pedophile Jokes earlier in the episode, but
That's not what happened.
I mean, as the writer of a lot of the Shingles books, I kind of like the framework of a creepy camp counselor telling these stories to a bunch of kids who do not want to hear them.
Can we just go to bed? No. You're gonna sit around this campfire, toast some marshmallows, and listen about the time I bought a cursed sex toy.
Could make him like Walter Matthau in Bad News Bears, just a drunk piece of shit who doesn't really care about what's happening. Hey, I'll tell you a goddamn story. Why don't you bring me my story juice?
It's like, you know what I heard? They're shutting us down next year, so fuck it. Sit around, kids. We're gonna make this a year to remember.
I've been taking you little fucks out here for 30 goddamn years. They're gonna throw me out on my ass with no pension. Well, you're gonna hear some fucking stories tonight. That's what you're gonna hear.
This is perfect. I love it.
And instead of roasting marshmallows over the fire, they're roasting magic mushrooms over the fire.
It writes itself. Well, I don't know. I mean, I imagine a lot of industry professionals tune into this podcast. One, don't steal our ideas, industry professionals.
No, I dare you to try and write shingles.
Two, which industry exactly?
A lot of
'Cause,
industries. A lot of dark and terrible industries.
I truly can't believe we've written this many shingles without burning our own careers down. So I encourage someone to take that risk.
Yeah, it's like it's amazing there aren't whole Twitter threads on us because of this series. You're slacking, YA Twitter. You're slacking.
That hasn't crossed my mind in the past month.
Yeah, fucking.
We need some fucking bad publicity.
Eventually, everybody named Tony is gonna find aliens wrecked my kegger, and they'll come for me.
You know, all
Then
I
the
got to
shit
do
will
is go into like the back end of like, you know, KDP and just make one change, switch like, you know, shingles from where it is, and say put it in for children category. Instant publicity.
God, what worse? What if we did well there?
You wouldn't be the first person to do that. Who was it who did a bunch of jokey children's stories?
Go the fuck to
R.L.
sleep.
Stein.
No. It wasn't even Go to Fuck to Sleep. It was something like a kid on a swing, and it's like Jane swings both ways. And it was drawn like...
Get in my van.
It was drawn like a children's book, and it was quite obviously a parody of the children's book, but they released it in the children's section anyway, so people were going, oh no, this is a for real children's book. It wasn't. But it was funny.
Maybe we're just too damn responsible for our own good.
Yeah.
That's
We
where
should-
I
it
don't think
leads to
that's a
mind.
phrase that's ever been applied to us.
Well, if we get a comic written, then we've got something we can hand out to children. And then the Twitter threads begin.
Outside of schools and playgrounds.
A long coat, some sunglasses.
Hey kid, first one's free.
Hey kid, you want to come down?
Is Steve cosplaying the counselor? Sure.
Come down to my comic book basement, kids.
Oh no. It was Steve all along.
That's the twist, motherfuckers. You just got R.L. Stein.
I got a collection of baby oil and shingles comics.
Oh God, you'd have to invent like an extra death sentence.
Just every child being like, what the fuck are shingles? Get some good comics, you piece of shit.
Got a collection of Shingles comics and Boner Bob's all-purpose lube.
That's an inside joke for you Shingles fans out there. If you don't get it, get involved. Man, we managed to shill a lot today into today's episode.
This has really been the shill episode.
Yeah.
Shill quest.
Behind the scenes interest stuff. There you go.
There you go. But do go out and buy some shingles and check out Chronicles of Calamity on Indiegogo.
All right, so maybe as we wrap up, how about we recommend some comics? Any comics that we have read or enjoyed or want to, plug for folks out there?
I'll go first.
Oh, okay.
Because I meant to bring this up before in the episode, but it never came up. But the only comic I really ever enjoyed was The Tick. I haven't read a lot of comics, but this one, I mean, I've seen the animated series, I've seen the live action series, and neither of them did justice to the comic book, and that was so funny. It bowled me over. It almost made me interested in comics.
Spoon.
I'm going to recommend, because I'm constantly astonished that Americans aren't really that familiar with 2000 AD, which I think is a bi-weekly anthology series. That you probably know Judge Dredd. You might know Rogue Trooper to look at. But they've got a load of cool kind of properties within it. But because it's an anthology and they're not that mainstream, they can take a few risks. They do stuff like ABC Warriors, like Slade. They'll have Irish barbarian kings chopping up lizard men, and they'll have robot people crushing humans. It's all kind of violent and punky, but the range of art and storytellers. I mean, we're talking about British comic book people. A lot of them got their start in 2000 AD, and you can get this like wonderfully painted art for one story, because you'll get about 5 stories an episode these days, and then you'll get just something that's like kind of black and white and looks like a B comic from the 80s, but it's still great storytelling. You get paranormal detectives, pirate adventures. It's great. It's just a mixed bag of cool stuff with a bit of a kind of more, I wouldn't say grown up attitude, kind of a fuck you attitude to it. And it amazes me that it's kind of not as well known outside of Britain as it should be. So that's my recommendation.
I'm a whore, so I'm going to say I've had a lot of people asking me when the second issue of Bill the Vampire comic is coming out, and all I'll say is tell your friends, so I can sell some more of the first issue.
Your wall-to-wall shield today is great.
But no, so in a more serious tone, I would just say, obviously, like I'm a big Marvel fan and stuff, but I've come to like appreciate independent comic publishers, and a lot of them do struggle to like be found because they're up against people with much bigger marketing budgets, and the reality is the big place you would think to like be found, Comixology, kind of sucks. But yeah, I mean, if you know any like any indie like comic folks, just support them, shout them out, share their stuff, because they're the ones who are really the entire industry is struggling to survive, but it's always going to be the little guy who's going to scrape by the hardest.
And they're often the people doing something a bit more risky, a bit more interesting.
So probably for me, the entire run of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. The Dark Phoenix saga, not that fucking movie, but the Chris Claremont X-Men. For contemporary and current stuff, Bitterroot is a current African-American centric, magical Harlem Renaissance style comic that's really, really good, and it's written and drawn by friends of mine. It's just fucking awesome. What else? If you like horror comics, Lock and Key. Yeah, the Netflix show, it was a comic book first.
I mean, that's true of a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Umbrella Academy was one I read and really enjoyed. I think the adaptation was pretty fair as well.
Yeah, I haven't read the comics. 28 Days Later was a comic first. Winona Earp started as a comic. But yeah, Fable is another good one. It's about fairy tale characters living in a section of New York City which is inside the real New York City. So there's like a 4-block radius of magical shit in the middle of New York. And it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That sounds fun.
It is.
Yeah, Fable's good.
And it's huge. There's a fuck ton of collections of that. Bill Willingham wrote it. I think he wrote Micro Machines. Or maybe Micronauts.
All right, I was going to ask, he wrote the script for the guy that talks really fast?
I mean, that guy needed a lot of words, yeah. It's a big job.
Yeah.
Big job for a Micro Machine.
I don't have nearly as many as John. Folks who know me know I'm a Superman fan. All-Star Superman is a great example of that. Another one is Superman's Secret Identities. That one gets a little less attention, but it's a very short-run series that's extremely good. And also shout out a friend of mine, Sabrina Pandora, who runs Giant Girl Adventures. Just did some posting today that she's bringing that webcomic back. So good for her, and go check that one out.
Oh, cool. See, we're not all about shameless self-promotion. Sometimes shamelessly promote other things as well.
As long as it's shameless.
Yeah, as long as it's shameless, we're down for it. Well, we hope you enjoyed this chat about comic books and took home some of the key messages we attempt to relay to you. in this episode of Side Quest. We'll be back again next week with a regular episode of Authors and Dragons. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.